So let's talk about Bitcoin. You've probably seen it in the headlines a lot lately, right? Especially with all the recent moves by big corporations and even governments. Well, today we're going to dive into the story of Bitcoin, 17 years after it all started with a pretty mysterious paper.
It all kicks off with just a number, 17. And you're probably thinking, what does that have to do with anything in the crazy, fast-moving world of crypto? Well, it's about time. Specifically, 17 years ago. And get this, it happened on this very day, on Halloween of all days. Something went down that would quietly set the stage for a financial revolution.
And this is what happened. The genesis moment, really. A person, or maybe a group of people, we still don't know, using the name Satoshi Nakamoto just dropped this 9-page document online. It outlined a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. Nobody could have guessed it then, but this was the birth of Bitcoin.
Okay, so from that one little paper, Bitcoin's price went on this absolutely wild ride. I mean, it's one of the most volatile and, frankly, incredible journeys in financial history. The numbers really do tell the story here. Just look at these numbers. The scale of growth here it's just mind-boggling, right? We are talking about going from 20 cents in 2010, all the way up to a peak of over $61,000 in 2021. And yeah, as you can see, there have been some absolutely massive drops along the way. The overall climb is staggering, but it has been anything but a straight line up.
And that up and down, that volatility, that's a huge part of the Bitcoin story. You know, as CZ, the founder of Binance, one of the biggest crypto exchanges out there, puts it, there have been many dips. For a lot of people in this world, that turbulence isn't a problem. It's just part of the deal for a new and maturing asset.
So as Bitcoin's gotten older, something else has started to happen. And that brings us to our next chapter. Corporations are getting in on the action. Bitcoin is starting to move from just being this speculative thing to something that major companies are actually building into their strategies.
So just how serious are they? Well, how about this serious? $2.8 billion. That's not revenue. That's the unrealized profit Michael Saylor's company reported from its Bitcoin holdings in just the third quarter. We're now in a world where corporate treasuries are holding Bitcoin as a main reserve asset.
But it's not just about sitting on it as a long-term investment. Take Steak and Shake, for example. They're doing something a little different. They're building what they call a Strategic Bitcoin Reserve, or SBR. What that means is, when someone pays in Bitcoin, they don't immediately cash it out for dollars. Nope, they're holding it as a core part of their finances. That's a huge shift in how a business can think about its money.
Okay, so you've got corporations making these massive billion-dollar moves. It was only a matter of time before governments and world leaders had to sit up and take notice, right? And now, that conversation is happening at the very highest levels.
And what's fascinating is that right now we're seeing these two conversations happening at the same time. On one side, you have the old-school world of international trade and tariffs, and on the other, you've got this whole new discussion about the future of money itself.
So, here's track one, the traditional stuff. You've got the US and China hammering out a big trade deal. They're talking about long-term stability. They're talking about reducing tariffs. You know, the kind of big economic news we're all used to hearing about.
And then, at the exact same time, you have this. The Treasury Secretary is meeting with the Prime Minister of Singapore. And what are they talking about? Increasing the adoption of crypto and stablecoins. This is a really big deal. It's like the blueprints for a new financial system are being drawn up right alongside the old one.
All right, so we've got 17 years of crazy growth. We have huge companies jumping in, and now governments are having serious talks. The big question is, where is this all heading? What's next?
Well, if you ask the Treasury Secretary himself, the foundation is rock solid. His take is that after 17 years, the network hasn't just survived, it's more resilient than ever. I mean, think about that. That's a top government official giving a pretty powerful nod to Bitcoin's staying power and its underlying tech.
But you know how it is. The future is always a bit chaotic, right? On one hand, you have the day-to-day chatter, the market noise, like Jim Cramer trying to predict a bounce on Monday. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have these huge, almost sci-fi predictions that always pop up around new tech. You know, like Elon Musk talking about flying cars. The whole conversation about Bitcoin's future is happening somewhere in that wild space in between. And that really brings us full circle back to the big question. From a simple 9-page paper dropped on Halloween to this global financial phenomenon that's now being discussed by world leaders, Bitcoin has definitely proven it's resilient. But let's be honest, it's still packed with risk and so much uncertainty. So what's on the next page of Bitcoin's story? I guess that's something we're all going to be watching together.